Hey there, how's it going? This is Tripp. This is a video on the root cause of all human problems. And I'm aware as I say that sounds like a bold claim, right? It sounds like it might be hyperbolic to a certain degree, and there are some caveats around it. But what we're looking at here in this video is indeed the root cause, you could say, or certainly the factor that is at the heart of the vast majority of problems that you are going to encounter in your life. Particularly, I'm talking about chronic problems, problems that don't seem to be able to resolve easily. And I also want to say, if you stick around to the end, I'm going to give you a master key solution that will help you cut through this particular Gordian knot, so to speak. Before we get into this, I'm going to say, if you like the concept of this even, please do like the video. Like it even more if you like the content. And if you don't like it, you can like it anyway. Okay, it's going to create good karma for you. And I also want to say that I am running this video in conjunction with, even though it's not entirely directly related to, training I've got coming up at the end of September, live online on adaptive hypnotic change work. Okay, it's all about change and resolving problems. But that's not exactly what this video is about, but you can check it out on the link around if you're interested in that. Okay, so the root cause of all human problems. A huge influence on my work as a change work practitioner, probably the single biggest influence, is the legendary hypnotist and psychiatrist and strategic change master, Milton H Erikson. Now, Erickson, I'm not going to get into talking about Erickson deeply here, but I probably will in some other videos that I've got coming up soon. Erickson was still running teaching seminars, small teaching seminars, all the way through the 70s, right up to his death in 1980, to just a few weeks before his death. Just before he passed on, somebody asked him in one of those seminars, Dr. Erickson, if you had to name one thing that was the single most important factor in human difficulties, human problems, human complaints, what would be that one thing? And without missing a beat, Erickson said rigidity. Okay, rigidity. Now, why is Erickson saying this? In order to make sense of this, I'm going to reference a long dead guy, a guy called Heraclitus, a pre-Socratic Greek philosopher. He is famous for saying a human being, a person, cannot step into the same river twice because it is not the same river and they are not the same person. Okay. Other famous Heraclitean lines is nothing is permanent but change. So Heraclitus was interested in the nature of the universe, in the nature of human beings, in the nature of life. He's a philosopher. Of course, he's interested in those things. The conclusion that Heraclitus came to is that change is the default, right? Change is the default. Everything is in a state of flux. He talked about the flux of opposites, okay, which is why for me, Heraclitus is very much aligned with Taoism, the flux of opposites, yin and yang. He didn't use the term yin and yang, but he talked about the flux of opposites. So if life is all about change, if people are all about change, how is it that people get stuck, right? How is it that people end up with chronic problems that just won't resolve? Why is it that Erickson is saying that inflexibility, right? A lack of flexibility, rigidity, is what leads to human problems. Now, if you think about it, this makes sense. Rigidity is actually not the norm for kids. Kids are very flexible. Kids are very adaptive, and they need to be. Each and every one of us, I've said this before, when we come into the world with no sense of anything, right? We have no ideas about how anything works. And also the other thing that all babies have in common is they're utterly powerless. All they can do is recruit a caregiver to look after them because they don't have any power in the world. They don't have an ability to stand up, walk. They don't have an ability to address the kinds of issues and problems they might find in the world and solve them. They don't have the ability to create inventive pathways through to the kinds of outcomes they want. This is what being a kid's all about. It's learning to do that. It's moving from a place of having no power in the world to having the kind of power that you want to have in the world to be able to act upon the world in ways that create good results. So kids have to be very adaptive. They have to be open. They have to be very fluid in their ability to take on board new ideas. And this is what they do. And, you know, underneath of this, if we're looking at it from a kind of Ericksonian framework, Erickson would talk about the creative unconscious mind. He would usually just refer to the unconscious mind I refer to the creative unconscious mind. This is another way of looking at this. Kids have this powerful creative unconscious mind that's always looking at things in a variety of different ways. It's curious, it's figuring things out. Kids are very open-minded, right? They have to be open-minded. If kids were closed-minded, they'd never learn anything. So all kids have this powerful, creative, adaptive, unconscious mind, which is wonderful at learning, wonderful at putting new solutions together, wonderful at looking at things in a variety of different ways, coming to different conclusions, testing things, doing all of this kind of cool stuff. Then something weird happens when we become adults, right? And I'll tell you what it is. Milton Erickson used to talk about the unconscious mind, but I think that's it's a simplification. Erickson would have acknowledged it's a simplification. Here's a slightly better nuanced simplification. We have two unconscious minds. We have what I call the creative adaptive unconscious mind, and then we have the computerized robotic unconscious mind, all right? Now, let's look at these two next to each other. The creative adaptive unconscious mind. This is all about flexibility, dynamism, looking at things in a variety of different ways. It is about divergent thinking, right? Connecting into possibility. It's about creation. It's about creativity. Then we have the robotic unconscious mind, or you could call it the patterned unconscious mind, which is all the stuff that creative unconscious mind builds that enables us to do life effortlessly without thinking about it, right? Because we don't actually want to have to come up with a creative new solution every time we do something. Every time I want to open a can of beans, I don't want to have to come up with a creative new solution. So what do? I build a pattern and then I live by that pattern. So in a sense, our creative unconscious mind is building patterns all the way through our childhood, patterns of doing and patterns of viewing, to borrow a phrase from Bill O'Hanlon, right? We have patterns in the way we do things and patterns in the way we see things or make sense of things. Once we've put these in place, right, our robotic, computerized, unconscious mind has all of this stuff. We can start running by default in almost endless situations. That is highly efficient. And once our creative, adaptive, unconscious mind has put all these patterns in place as we're learning and growing, it tends to kind of go, my work here is done, and drop offline, right? It's not that we've lost that creativity, that adaptiveness, that ability to look at things in a variety of different ways, that ability to connect to possibilities and find new pathways through. We haven't lost it. It's just kind of gone to sleep, and the torch has been passed over to what that mind built, right? The patterns, the rigidity, the inflexibility. That stuff always serves us in life until it doesn't. As soon as it stops serving us, we need something different. We need to switch on that creative, adaptive, unconscious mind once again that's going to create new things, going to find new pathways through. But it becomes really challenging because we get stuck in certainty about what we know, right? And rigidity in what we do. And it seems kind of frightening and it seems kind of scary to let go of that stuff. Why? Because we built it in order to move us to a position of greater power in life. So unconsciously to let go of it has us feel like we are losing control or opening back up to the chaos of things. Now, let me go back to Heraclitus. Heraclitus pointed out nothing is permanent but change. You might think if you're stuck in life, yes, I want change, but you don't want any change. You only want change that makes things better. Unconsciously, we often feel if we let go of the tight grip of control, if we let go of the patterns that are tried and tested and work for us, if we let go of the ways of seeing that have served to keep us surviving, if we let go of those, yes, of course, we might open to change, but it might be the change of chaos. Things might get, quote unquote, worse. So we hold on with a tight grip, right? We hold on to our current ways of viewing and we hold on to our current ways of doing, because to let go seems risky. And guess what? It is risky. It is risky. This is why we get caught in chronic patterns. Okay? So there's an old saying it comes from Taoism, which is in order to profit, you must invest in loss. You have to be willing to loosen the tight grip of certainty, to let go of the patterns that seem to make complete sense, patterns of viewing and doing, the patterns that have utterly served you in navigating life so far, even though you may not like the results, the patterns that your creative unconscious mind put in place to move you to a position of greater power in your life, more effect in the world, right? But if it's not getting you what you want, then you have to let go. So when you let go, you loosen the grip, right? That rigidity frees off, and in its place, you get this powerful, creative, adaptive unconscious mind. Adaptiveness is the opposite of rigidity, right? You could say flexibility is, but adaptiveness is about flexibility in action and thought plus intention. So you've got an intentionality in your direction of thought. You don't just want any old thing to happen. You want particular kinds of things to happen. So to open up to that creative, adaptive, unconscious mind, to open up to that creativity being able to work with the Heraclitian default of change and steer that flow of change, because we don't want change to just go and happen in some chaotic way. We want to be able to steer change. You do not steer change in your life by stopping change, but that's what most people do. Their rigidity actually stops the natural dynamic of change unfolding, because one is unconsciously afraid that it might lead to bad places, right? So people are unwilling to invest in loss because it looks like loss might lead to loss, complete loss. Okay, so there's a paradox inside of this. We have a powerful, adaptive, creative, unconscious mind that moved us from a place of zero power in life to the place of power that we currently have in the world and with the world, whatever that level might be. Okay, and it did so by building a whole bunch of automations and patterns of thought and action. Now, if we now look at what we've got and we go, do you know what? Of course, I have more power in my life. I have more ability to solve problems than I did when I was a baby, but now I'm kind of stuck. In order to profit, you must invest in loss. You have to be willing to loosen the grip. You have to be willing to let go. This is really challenging. All right. And it's challenging for a few reasons, because our mind will sell us on those certainties that we've landed on. No, it really is true that this is the only way to solve this problem. No, it really is true that this problem is exactly the way I think it is. Right. So we get sold on truth and certainty. I've often called this the truth trap. Okay. We get caught up in truths. And there's a risk involved in letting it go. So what do? If we want to get out of this, there's a few ways out of this. And one of the ways out I'm going to address in a different video, where I'm going to talk about how hypnosis is particularly effective at helping people drop out of existing patterning and back into that creative faculty that exists within them that's able to build new ways of being and new ways of doing. I'm going to explain that in a different video, so I'm not going to go there now. I'm going to give you something that you can do in your life. Okay, or two things that need to happen here. The first thing that needs to happen is the ability to fall out of certainty, to let go of certainties. Okay, now this is easier said than done. Our left hemisphere particularly likes to build certainties about things and hold on to them very, very tightly. It's not easy to let go of certainty while you're caught in what I call the truth trap, that is believing the way I think about things is the way things are. The way we think about things is never the way things are. All right, it's just the way we think about things. Hence, the map is not the territory. If your map is a good map of the territory, the way things are, i.e. your thinking, your ideas are a good fit, you will be getting the kind of results that you want. If you're not getting the kind of results that you want, your map is a bad fit. Okay, so it's more about, are my ways of thinking about things working for me, not are they true? That's what I call releasing yourself from the truth trap. So that's the first thing that you want to do, is release yourself from the truth trap. Easier said than done, because our mind is constantly it constantly creates the sense that what we believe to be true really is true. The things we think are true really seem true. So releasing yourself from the truth trap and starting to go, hang on a second, it's not about truth, it's about different ways of thinking about things and how these different ways of thinking about things are serving me. That's the switch you want to make. I sometimes have called this the power switch in life, because it puts you really back into your power to recreate, get back into that creative, adaptive, unconscious mode and start creating new solutions in life. All right. So that's the first thing. Second thing I would say, is extremely useful to cultivate a sense of faith and trust in your adaptive unconscious mind and how it connects with the world and its ability to create good new solutions. A lot of people do not have a high level of trust in something other than their conscious control. So if you go back to the work of Milton H Erikson, a huge amount of what he was doing was helping people let go of conscious control and connect back into their creative unconscious mind. If you look at something like the 3 principles, that's all about falling out of your controlling thinking and into what they would call your healthy psychological functioning. Some 3P teachers would call it. Some would call it your well-being. Some would call it your wisdom. Some would call it the self-correcting mechanism. This is an idea as well. It's like, if you do not have a sense that your life is going to be okay, if you let go of the tight grip on the joystick or whatever, or on the control handle, if you do not believe that, then you're only ever going to get more of the same, because you get caught up in your certainties, right? That's the only thing you're certain is going to produce good results, is the kind of certainties you're holding on to that are currently not producing good results, right? So that's like really important, this sense of kind of faith that, do you know what, it's going to be okay. I can let go of the stick and it will be okay. Again, easily said, less easily done. Now I'm going to give you a third and quite pragmatic hack, but again, it requires faith. The third pragmatic hack is taking anomalous actions. Okay? Taking anomalous actions. What do I mean by this? When you make sense of something a certain way, you will take actions that accord with the sense that you've made, right? And you will often think ahead of time, what shall I do? That won't work. That won't work. Well, this will seem to work. So you're going to take the same actions over and over again, according to what you believe, right? So one way of hacking the system is to take different actions. Now, I would suggest you take anomalous actions in alignment with intent, but don't decide what is and what isn't going to work ahead of time. If you only ever do what you think is going to work ahead of time, you're only ever going to be a victim of the thinking that's causing your current problem to perpetuate. You have to step outside of the box. I might do a video on where that expression comes from, outside of the box, thinking outside the box somewhere else, but I'm not going to do it here. So the trick is to take anomalous action. Now, you can do this by starting to be aware of what kinds of actions am I taking right now? How many of them have been anomalous, i.e. outside of what I would normally do, surprising, different, whatever? This could be actions in doing, or it could be actions in thinking. Are there certain habitual ways you have of thinking about things? Easier to see your doings than it is to see your thinking, but it's often more powerful to shift at the level of thinking than doing. Okay, but shifting at the level of doing can shift the thinking and vice versa. So you want to look and go, when was the last time I took an anomalous action, right, in solving this problem or going beyond this problem? When was the last time I did something radically different? Okay, and that thing that you do different often won't make sense. If it makes sense according to the current thinking is what's perpetuating the problem, right? So you need to do things that don't make sense. This is why most of the time real change comes from either random events changing because they're not things you would have thought to do, or from doing paradoxical things. This is why if you look at the old change masters like Erickson, like Jay Haley, they were often very interested in paradoxical interventions, symptom prescriptions, these sorts of things. I'm not going to talk about that here, right? But it's a way of hacking the system. Hacking the system. Steve Jobs said you cannot connect the dots looking forward, only looking backward. What that means is if you're only taking actions according to how you're connecting the dots looking forward, you will end up probably perpetuating your current situation, right? So take anomalous action. Do one or two things different. Do little things different sometimes, but that seem really different, right? You're taking them because you go, I want to break the status quo. I want to bust up the status quo, right? So what could you do that is different? Not what could you do that is different that makes sense, just what could you do that is different? In neurolinguistic programming, one of the founding tenets is if what you're doing isn't working, do something different, anything different, right? Not do something different, but only the things that seem sensible according to your current thinking. It's do something different, anything different. The trick is anomalous action. The trick is to hack the system. Right? If you start doing this and do it in alignment with intention, you're going to start changing the patterns, the rigid patterns that have been keeping you stuck in life. Okay, so I'm not going to say anything more about this. If you're interested in the online training, the Tao of Adaptive Hypnotic Change Work, you can find a link around here somewhere. If you like this video, if you found the ideas in this video useful, if you're still watching now, please do give the video the thumbs up. Please do subscribe to the channel and please do hit the notifications bell. If you have any questions about any of this, please do make use of the comments section below.